One of the big differences between this version and the original version is the fact that the theatrical version is told in a much more linear fashion, where in this version of the story you bounce back and forth a lot more. So what advantages do you feel you had by shifting from a linear to a much more nonlinear?
Well, it was the way it was written originally. First act, he conquers Babylon. He goes to the top. The second act, he marries. This is a key event in Alexander's real life because he married, of all people, 10 years too late, he marries a Bactrian princess called Roxanne. The historians don't go over that, but it seems like he's cutting his own throat. He's insulting his people. The heir to the empire, so to speak, is now going to be a half Asian. How can you get out of a hole like that without it's incomprehensible, the mess he gets himself into. He ignores his mother's advice completely. So the second act to me is this marriage and the implications and the fight with the generals. Ending, and the third act, it opens up now. After the marriage, he has this relationship that you see in more detail with his mother and his father. And you get to the point of this thing, which is this assassination of Philip is a big issue. Who killed him? No one will ever know. It was like a Lee Harvey Oswald situation. But the fact is that there's tons of motives. That Darius had a motive. But the mother's reaction, of course, always set off a tremendous amount of speculation. And she could easily, and the Greeks hated them too. Who knows? The point is Alexander had to suspect his mother, and he had to have some involvement to some degree, even if he was innocent. And through his mother's acquiescence in this murder, because she mocked Philip openly and praised the murderer, she praised the murderer publicly. Through his mother's acquiescence, he himself becomes part of this parasite, or whatever you want to call it. Clytemnestra killed her husband. Orestes killed his mother, but Oedipus killed his father. And Oedipus is another character in there.
Do you think there was an Oedipal relationship between Alexander and...
No doubt, and that's before Freud. Some critics criticize this as Freudian psychology, but I laugh because all of Freud's stuff comes from the Greeks. What was I saying? So anyway, the whole backstory is fascinating to me about Alexander's near madness. What I'm saying, the most important scene in the movie is perhaps when he goes up against the elephant. He never wants to lose that battle. He kills himself to win, and he wins. True story. Never lost a war. Napoleon lost. Julius Caesar lost. I don't know. No, Caesar never lost, but he won late. But the point is, Alexander is the greatest military commander. And West Point will even tell you this. So he saves the day at the price of his life. What's the last thing he thinks of? His interview with his mother after his father's death. And this ambiguity emerges. And the mother says, fuck it. Take the power. It's yours. You love it. Be the king. Don't grieve. Don't give me this guilt and all this bullshit. Be a king. I love her strength. That's why Angelina works for me. She's a dominant woman, and she's a strong woman, knows what she wants, and she's completely against the modern grain. Anyway, that sets off, and then we cut back to India, and what happens? He's alive, but he's dead. He's been resurrected. You see him, he's completely white. Walks out, he says, men of Macedon, we're going home. Pause. And then the men cheer, and you see his face, and he's dead. Because home for him is the mother. Home for him is death. He knows he's dying. So it's a strange moment, but that's what it's about. It's somehow I think that Philip's, his father, maybe I'm crazy, maybe, but his father's assassination, his mother's possible acquiescence, have a lot to do with Alexander's doubts about himself. And his doubts drove him to his greatness. And I think in India, he earned his mantle by his near death, by sacrifice. And I think that's why we had that image of the father's ghost coming back out in India to sort of bless him, to approve of him, to make him a divine. He looks up at the eagle at that point, and of course the eagle is leaving forever.